And I agree with what Chairman Powell said last week, that the number one threat is the strength, and that strength that we built is inflation. So the Fed should do its job, and it will do its job, I'm convinced, with that in mind. That's by they're going to make their homes more secure in terms of heat not getting out and air conditioning not escaping, because they have good insulation. You know, we have no plan. They have no plan to bring down energy prices today, like they do with the Department of with the military as it relates to what the administration is able to negotiate for prices for military. The cap, and I also call for a cap on the price of insulin, which 200,000 American children rely on. The bottom line is easing these bottlenecks and making our supply chains more secure in a plan. It's the ultra MAGA agenda, but it'll do nothing to help to hold big corporations and companies accountable. Cost. Republicans kind of want to make, and Congress want to make Medicare's very existence up for vote over and over again. To last year, we cut the budget $350 billion. The deficit, not the budget, the deficit, $350 billion. Because reducing the deficit is one of the main ways we can ease inflationary pressures. The other path is the ultra MAGA plan. I know you got to be frustrated. I know. I can taste it. Frustrated by high prices, by gridlock in Congress, by the time it takes to get anything done. Believe me, I understand the frustration.
Mr. President,
if you're going to ask me about what I spoke about, I'll try to.
Mr. President, why do you believe so many Americans believe that your administration is not doing enough to combat inflation? And do you believe that you and your administration bear some measure of responsibility for the inflation that we're seeing across the country?
First is we're in power. That's the first thing. And you justifiably right, we control all three branches of the government. Well, we don't really. We have 50-50 in the Senate. You need 60 votes to get major things done. I've been pushing the things I've been proposing here, and you've heard me speak to today since I got in office. And I need to get 60 votes to be able to even pass them, number one. Number two, I think that, you know, they're not focused. All they're focused on, understandably, is the problem they're facing. They get a 5.5% raise, an average raise in their salaries, and yet inflation exceeds that. And they look around the world, and they know that a lot of it's extremely complicated. And so they're frustrated, and I don't blame them. I really don't blame them. There's a lot we have to do. But you know as well, I shouldn't say you, I think what I have to do is explain in simple, straightforward language what's going on. Like, the reason why 30% of the inflation last year is because automobiles cost more. Why did they cost more? They couldn't get the computer chips to make them. People were making a lot more money. They wanted to buy the automobiles. They couldn't buy them because the cost went up so high because there were so few of them. The same way this year. The same way this year, the reason why prices are up. They understand, but they don't. Look, most people, the vast majority of Americans are hoping that their government just takes care of the problem and they don't have to think about it in detail at the kitchen table or at the dinner table. And that's understandable no matter what their background. But right now, it's confusing. There's a war in Ukraine. And they're scratching their heads like, what the heck is Russia doing? Should we be helping? They think we should be helping the innocent Ukrainians. But what impact does that have? Do you think the average person, whether they have a PhD or they have any other job, sits and thinks, wow, there's thousands of tons of grain in elevators in Ukraine. They can't get out. And Ukraine's one of the biggest producers of corn and wheat. Huh. I wonder whether that's the reason my prices are up.
Do you take any responsibility for inflation in this country? Do you take any responsibility for your policies?
I think our policies help, not hurt. think about what they say. The vast majority of the economists think that this is going to be a real tough problem to solve, but it's not because of spending. We brought down the deficit. The bottom line is, how much does America owe? How much in the hole are we going? We're reducing that.
Today you have retail gasoline prices and diesel prices at record highs.
Yes.
Yet you have yet to ask Americans to consume less. You're a train guy. Have you ever thought of your administration asking Americans to drive less, to take public transport?
Well, if you ever raised a family like mine, you don't have to tell them. They're doing everything in their power to figure out how not to have to show up at the gas pump. That's why, for example, one of the things that's going to help a lot, but it's going to take time, is our infrastructure bill. The truth is, they don't have that many options in terms of transportation around the country right now. If you live in the Northeast Corridor, you do. If you're driving back and forth between Baltimore, Washington, New York, et cetera. But you don't have many choices. You don't have a whole lot of choices to deal with other aspects of transportation in terms of local transportation. And so what happens is, and unless they're electric, we find ourselves the cost of flying, buying a ticket on a plane costs more because of gas prices. So this is a process. But it's a process that I've been consistent about, wanting to lower prices and shift to renewable energy so we're not as dependent. I have conversations almost every day. Well, that's an exaggeration. At least twice a week with one of my European counterparts, heads of state, on how can we help them, in fact, wean themselves off of Russian oil because they're so totally dependent. So we're working like the devil to help them transition, because as long as Russia's able to make money selling oil, they're going to continue to be able to do the bad things they're doing. So there's a lot. It's really complicated. I'm not suggesting American people can't understand it. They understand it, but they have, they're working 8-10 hours a day just to put food on the table. And so I think what's happened is we have, in a sense, I never expected, let me say this carefully. I never expected the ultra MAGA Republicans who seem to control the Republican Party now to have been able to control the Republican Party. I never anticipated that happening.
Mr. President, a year ago, the administration was saying that inflation was transitory. That's obviously not the case now. How long do you think it will be until we see prices coming down?
I'm not going to predict that. It ranges depending on which economists you're talking to by the end of this year, and some say it's going to increase next year. But there's others say by the end of this year you're going to see it come down by the calendar year. I don't know, but I know what we have to do to make sure that we can bring it down.
China tariffs?
Do you support any restrictions on abortion, or what limits do you believe there should be as the Senate?
Because I want the story to be about inflation.
You called out Rick Scott a little while ago in your remarks. Earlier today, anticipating your remarks, he said, and I'm just quoting here, that the best thing, the most effective thing Joe Biden can do to solve the inflation crisis he created is resign. He's the problem. The senator added later, Joe Biden is unwell, he's unfit for office, he's incoherent, incapacitated, and confused. These are his words. Offering him a chance to respond.
I think the man has a problem.
Can I ask you about will you drop former President Trump's China tariffs?
We're discussing that right now. We're looking at what would have the most positive impact.
To erase them?
No, I didn't say that.
I'm asking.
I'm telling you we're discussing it, and no decision has been made on it.
Thank you, guys.
How long should Americans be prepared to pay this much at the pump? Are you concerned about it?
And good day, everyone. Good day. This is Andrea Mitchell reports in Washington. Well, you just saw the president. You heard him answering some questions. He's tackling the Democrats' #1 midterm problem, historically high inflation. In a speech largely repeating White House talking points,